Hello guys, and welcome to our third Daraja API tutorial. And in this class we'll be looking at how the M-PESA and how it interacts with you. Now, this is how, on understanding, this is how the system works. We have the client, and the client makes the request to the M-PESA system. M-PESA system does its own validation. And if there is anything, if it is just between the client and M-PESA system, he'll get directly a response. Otherwise, in our scenario, we are going to see the client making the request, then M-PESA validating that request first. In other words, it will check whether this customer has enough balance, is allowed, is registered, and all those. Those are internal things. Number two, if M-PESA sees that that transaction seems genuine or it has been validated, it looks whether you have what you call a third-party validation, and that is you now. For instance, a client may want to pay for an invoice, and maybe you don't expect partial payments. So a client pays, maybe he owes you like 1,000 shillings, and he wants to pay 999. So in your own validation, that request, you can cancel it because you wouldn't want a situation where a customer gets supplied for things or for services that he or she has not cleared. So if you validate based on the invoice number, as we shall look later, and the amount he's paying, and you find that it is not what you're expecting, either it is exceeding or even more below, what you do, you validate it, you send the response to M-PESA. In other words, you can either accept or reject. I want you to note those two things. These are the things. So you respond with the numbers to reject, or a 0. Any number from 1 means reject the transaction. And if you send a 0, in other words, you have validated and accepted this transaction, then M-PESA completes by giving the client the response, and also it sends you the status. Now, if you don't have any method of validation, M-PESA will take your transaction as true. If, in other words, the client has been validated by M-PESA and what he was expected, he has failed. So you receive the transaction status. These are the responses to your endpoint, and then you can choose either to save to whatever it is, and then you can either respond to the client. This is how the M-PESA flows. You can either allow the client, or if a client has already paid, you can maybe request the status of the transaction, and you send the request to M-PESA, and then M-PESA will respond with whether the transaction was validated, whether it exists or not, or it is rejected, or all those things. You shall see them as we go by. So from the next class, actually, we are getting into coding. And remember our prerequisites, that is. And if you really like this video, kindly leave a like. Any question, leave in the description below, and I will be glad to answer.